Golf Pick'em Expert Picks, brought to you by FootJoy.
The PGA Tour heads to Jack Nicklaus's backyard this week for the Memorial Tournament. A lot of big names getting their final start in before the U.S. Open in 2 weeks' time. And let's start by breaking things down, as we always do, in the Golf Pick'em game, NBC Sports Predictor app. Make your picks for 10 head-to-head matchups. Pick a tournament winner and a winning score, $1,000 in guaranteed prizes, $50,000 jackpot if you notch a perfect score. We'll start this week with the defending champ against perhaps the hottest player in the world, Jon Rahm and Jordan Spieth. Rahm got to world number one at this event last year. He blitzed the field over the weekend. He won by 3 shots, an outstanding performance in brutal conditions. Jordan Spieth just let one get away last week at Colonial, gave up a 54-hole lead, finished second behind Jason Kokrak. They are both playing some really good golf. Jon Rahm, 5 top 10s in his last 7 starts. We know that Spieth has been there pretty much the entire year, including that win at Valero. I'm actually going to edge with Jordan Spieth, who has played well at this event when he has been playing well. 4 finishes of T13 or better in his career. I think that the putter is going to warm up after a rough final round. I think the ball striking is going to be there, and I think Jordan Spieth gets the best of Jon Rahm at the Memorial. A pair of major champs in this matchup, Rory McIlroy against Collin Morikawa. McIlroy did not have the Kiowa magic a couple weeks ago as he sought to win again at the PGA Championship on the Ocean course. But remember, he's just a couple weeks removed from that victory at Quail Hollow, and he has played well at Muirfield Village, 4 top 10 finishes in his career. Morikawa won on this course last year, but it wasn't the Memorial. It was the workday event that preceded it the week before in a little bit different conditions. He is coming off a mixed result at Colonial where the putter went cold, but he still finished inside the top 15 for the 3rd straight event. I'm actually going to edge with Morikawa. I think that the 2020 PGA champ is the way to go here because his ball striking has been so solid, and this is a course that tends to reward the best iron players in the world. McIlroy is a little bit hotter and cold. I think that he has a higher ceiling, but for the matchup, I'm going to go with Collin Morikawa. 2 former Memorial champs in this matchup, 2018 winner Bryson DeChambeau and 2019 winner Patrick Cantlay. Bryson finished T38 a couple weeks ago at Kiowa, and we remember that playoff victory 3 years ago. We also remember his missed cut. That was pretty memorable just last year at this event. Patrick Cantlay loves Muirfield Village. He barely missed that playoff in 2018, came back the next year and won, and he was in the mix last year before a rough weekend, especially that final round. He's coming off a T23 finish at Kiowa. He had had a rough spring, but seemed to find it on the Ocean course, contended well into the final round. And I actually think that I'm going to side with him. I think that the iron play is really coming around. He's a player that I was high on in March and April, but I do think that he's bouncing back. Bryson, the high variance misses may not be a great mix for Muirfield Village. I know he's won here before, but I think Cantlay is the more solid option. 2 veterans in need of a big week to avoid a potential trip to U.S. Open final qualifying. Jason Day and Rickie Fowler, the Aussie, who is a resident of Columbus. He's got the home field advantage this week, sleeping in his own bed and playing a course where he's a member. But Jason Day has not had a great track record at this event before a T4 finish last year. And he's all of a sudden down to 70th in the world rankings. He needs to move inside the top 60 to avoid potentially missing the U.S. Open for the first time since 2010. That's a lot of pressure on a home game for him this week. On the flip side, Rickie Fowler still outside the top 100 in the world rankings despite that T8 finish at the PGA Championship on a special invite. He's been feast or famine at this event. 7 previous trips, 4 missed cuts, 3 top 15 finishes, but I love that upside, especially that runner-up finish back in 2017. Fowler is starting to turn the corner. The T8, as we mentioned, at the PGA, but he also showed some signs of life at the Valero Texas Open a couple weeks back. Jason Day made the cut at Kiowa, but that was to break a string of 3 straight missed cuts. I think he's farther away from the goal than Rickie Fowler is, so I'm going to go with Fowler, even though he's a little further down in the world rankings. All right, those are my picks for some of the marquee head-to-head matchups. But remember, in the NBC Sports Predictor app, you need to make your picks for all 10, plus give a tournament winner and a winning score. This week at the Memorial, I'm going with a guy who won on this course last year, but just not this event. Collin Morikawa, I was high on him last week at Colonial. I'm going back to the well, even though the putter did not cooperate in Fort Worth. I love his ball striking numbers, and I think that the redesign of this course could potentially play into his favor. We've got a lot of new green complexes, so those greens books that guys have relied on in recent years might have to get thrown out the window. So I'm willing to take a hot or cold putter, let's say, in Collin Morikawa because his ball striking is so good. So those are my picks. Remember, log on to the NBC Sports Predictor app, make your picks. You could compete for $1,000 in guaranteed prizes, $50,000 jackpot if you notch a perfect score. We'll see you next week.